10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Getting Started in Design. I'm your host, Gerry Scullion. I'm a service designer and educator and founder of the This Is HCD network and CEO of This Is Doing. This podcast is focused on shining a light on the tricky stages between education and employment and also moving careers into design. Now, we realise it's not a simple career to break into, and I myself can totally relate to this and often reflect back on the time a long time ago when I struggled a few years to catch a break. Now, hopefully this podcast goes some way towards helping you land your job in your chosen area of design. And today in the show, we have Rebekah Murphy, a UX designer based in Sydney, Australia. Now, I met Rebekah early last year and met a few times in a mentorship capacity in Dublin. And since then, Rebekah has successfully transitioned into her first design role and is now actually chapter lead for This Is HCD in Sydney, where she's hosting events for the human-centered design community out there. It's a great episode that takes you on the journey from being introduced to design via her job at Accenture in Ireland, all the way through to hopping on a flight to Australia and training over there and then landing her first job as a designer. It's a good one. Let's get straight into the episode. Rebekah Murphy, a very warm welcome to Getting Started in Design. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Gerry. How are you getting on?
I'm getting on okay, getting through the whole kind of COVID-19 pandemic, but everything is a little bit tricky. But we're not going to go into that today. We're going to speak a little bit more around Rebekah's journey into the world of design. And I've known you for maybe about a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to discuss your journey and what that's been like and how you got to where you are today. So maybe let's start and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you currently are at.
So currently I'm working as a UX designer, but I guess before that I was working as a technology consultant in Accenture, a consulting firm in Dublin, and then I moved kind of from that into client facing into their innovation centre. So Accenture has their main innovation centre in the docks in Dublin. So I moved in there and I actually transitioned into a Scrum Master role, which for people, it's a bit of a weird role that's kind of come up in the last few years. But anyway, it's kind of like agile project management, I guess, is another way of talking about it. But I was working as that. And then I guess we'll go into it, but I started thinking about the whole area of UX design, and I got a little bit of exposure to working with a couple of designers and seeing a couple of cool design projects in the Innovation Centre. And then I started thinking, I was like, oh, this kind of looks a bit cool, this looks a bit interesting. And then I started thinking about moving into it. So and then I did, and that's where I am now.
So let's go back, into pre-Accenture. Let's go into the university world. So what did you study in university?
So in university, I studied electronic engineering in UCD. So So it was interesting.
So you've got a curious mind.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it all stems from. So for me, it's been I've always loved solving problems. That's kind of the thing that I've been really interested in. And that's why I went into engineering, because I don't know, I was good at maths. I liked to solve puzzles, and I was like, okay, this seems like the course to do. Then I did 4 years of it and decided that was enough of engineering for me. And then I moved into more of a consult. Then if an engineer doesn't want to be an engineer, where'd you go?
Yeah. So after you finished electrical engineering, you took the leap into consulting, was it?
Yeah. So I guess I finished the 4 years, and I knew I didn't really want to stay in pure engineering, but I still wanted to do something that was, I guess, people facing and also keep that ability to solve problems. So I guess naturally, like a lot of the consulting companies, you know, they come into the universities, you hear about them, you're like, okay, this seems like a good way of trying out a couple of different industries, I guess. So that's why I decided to move into that area then.
Yeah. So when you were studying electrical engineering, what were your thoughts about design at that stage? Like,
so you know, it was actually really interesting. So in my first year of engineering, I ended up doing an internship within UCD, so one of UCD's research centers, and it was all around like kind of smart cities and like kind of the renewable industry and things like that. But the big thing that I got super excited about was this whole idea of smart cities and designing kind of the future of, you know, how we live. And that idea I got super interested in, and it's why I kind of went into electronic engineering, because I kind of wanted to go down that route of, you know, working within the smart industry sector and planning kind of future cities. So I guess that was where I started kind of feeling a bit of the notes of design, I guess.
Yeah. When you were in school, was design ever, you know, brought to you as a potential career choice?
I don't know. It's interesting. I guess I never thought of myself as like naturally creative. Like I liked kind of design, and I liked kind of the creative aspects of it, but I was never like naturally good at it. So I didn't do art as a subject for school. But say for example, in transition year, in fourth year, I got the opportunity to do architecture as a subject and tried it out, and I really liked it. And I was like, oh, I could definitely see myself doing this as a job. And I guess, I don't know, it never seemed like a viable option because I wasn't naturally, I guess, artistic.
The education system, maybe globally, but definitely locally in Ireland, doesn't present design very well in terms of a career choice. It's like the connection between art and design. You know, they're two separate things, and
Yeah.
you know, being creative, you know, almost as a checkbox, as being an indicator of you could be good at something. We're losing out so much talent to people in that space. Like they could there's so many designers there that get into careers that make this transfer. So what I'm trying to say with this whole podcast is, like, if you're working in any discipline and you've always had that itch and you're trying to maybe explore what working in the world of design might look like, Rebekah is a fantastic example of coming through that journey and going through the whole kind of educational process and coming out the other end of it. Now you're in a UX design role. So let's talk a little bit more around the process of, you were in a steady job, you're in a consultancy, you'd finished your university degree, and you know, you've been bitten by a bug, a design bug, and I want to know what you did around kind of to increase your chances of success in that kind of shift. What did you do?
So yeah, like I guess I decided that I liked the idea of design, and I was lucky enough to work in a company that had people in design. So Fjord is the service design company that is part of Accenture, and because I was working,
the guys in Fjord.
Yeah. I was a bit of a fangirl for a while when I was in Accenture. I'm sure they remember. But anyway, so yeah, I was just started talking to them, and I was like, "What do you do? Like, what is your day-to-day job? Is that something that I would like to do?" So I started doing that. I went to a couple of meetups as well, which was a bit weird because, you know, I don't know, going to one of those things by yourself is, you know, a little daunting. You just need to kind of put yourself out there and do that. And that's one thing I have found on this. You really just need to like put yourself out there. So for me, it was like, yeah, talking to people in the industry, going to a couple of meetups to just see what the whole vibe is there. And then also reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So, you know, this time last year, I guess, you got a cold message from me on LinkedIn being like, "Hi, I, you know, really want to get into design. I don't know how to do it. Help," basically. And I did a couple of those as well, and they actually ended up being really helpful.
Yeah. Most people will give you some time to try and point you in the right direction. But what kind of questions did you have? Like, what were you trying to validate in that process of kind of exploring meetups and exploring conversations? What were the questions that you had at that stage?
So for me, initially, it was based on my background. What are the next steps to get into design? And it was really interesting because obviously, depending on who you spoke to, it was so, so different. So, when I initially started reaching out to people, I was talking to those who were pure design. So they did their undergrad, their masters, all in design. And their point of view was you have to do a master's. You can't get into design unless you do a master's. And for me, I was like, I just don't know if I can commit to 2 years to something that I'm still testing if I like. And so that was something I was trying to validate. I was like, can my current experience translate into a job in design?
Hopefully I didn't say that to you.
No, you didn't. You were, thankfully, you were one of my saving graces. But you were like, don't need to go and do a master's. And you were kind of just like, jump into it and do it, which honestly was some of the best advice. Because
I can hear gasps around the world in universities by saying, he didn't recommend a master's. What are we going to do?
I don't know. Like, because honestly, like, having a master's or having the education is of course amazing. But for those who have already gone through the education process and just don't want to go back and commit to that, it's a tough place to be in, because you're like, okay, so for me, I was like, could I transfer internally? Like, that was my number one thing. I was like, surely that's the best and easiest way to do it. Which was also quite difficult, because you don't have the background.
I think at the time I said to you, well, look, there's a few options. One of the ones was, what do you have available to you right now? And you had, Accenture Interactive, you had Rothko, which is a design agency in Dublin, I was going to say in Sydney. And you also have Fjord. And I know some brilliant people down in Fjord in the dock. And they're all wonderful at what they do. And you were part of that family and that kind of setup. So, try and explore what it might look like, trying to get some more experience to try and bring design closer in your life, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was option one. And option two was something else that I floated. And I remember I actually recounted the story to a few people a few weeks ago, saying I had a mentor session with this person, and I said, look, it's a pity because like all my experiences in Australia, and I'm not a massive fan of 3-year incubate or 3-month incubation kind of programs and becoming at the other end, because there's a tendency there as a sausage factory kind of vibe, like you come in and you come out the other end with a piece of paper, but they do have their place for people. And I said, look, General Assembly in Sydney would be a good place. And we left the coffee at that, and then the next time we caught up next week, quit my job, I've booked flights and I'm going to Australia. And I remember kind of going, I rang my wife kind of going, oh my God, I literally had a conversation with somebody last week and told them about Australia, and they've quit their full-time job, bought a ticket one way to Australia and did a General Assembly course. They've dropped all their money into this. So the pressure, what happens if this doesn't work for this? I felt so involved. I was like, this better work. This better
You're
work
so
for this person. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have had mummy and daddy, over in Dublin knocking on my door.
Oh my God, my poor mum when I told her.
Well, actually, that's a good segment. Tell us what happened when you went home.
So, I guess it was interesting because I'd always kind of done stuff by the book. I'd gone to school, did engineering college, then went into a consultancy. So they've kind of been like, do you know what? So when I came home and I said it to them, I was like, Mum, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to move to Sydney. I'm going to become a designer. Weirdly, she was like, okay. She was like, okay. I was like, I actually didn't understand why she was so okay with it. And I think it was honestly because I'd literally given all her ideas a shot. Like, I tried all the things, the natural pathways that are currently, available for people in Dublin. And I just didn't like them. And she knew I was not happy in my current role. So she was like, you know what? If this is something you are excited about, if this is something that you want to do, go ahead and do it. The funny thing was that about a week before I don't even think it was a week. I think there was like a couple of days before I left, I was like checking her phone for something. And I went into her like last Google search, and her last Google search 2 days before I left was, "What is UX design?" Like my poor mother had no idea what I was getting myself into. So
Yeah. So
it
did
was
you have that
very
conversation
funny.
with her and explain to her what UX design was?
Sure, like I still struggled to explain it to her. Like I still struggled to say it to her before I left. I feel like now she understands. She just knows I work in digital, I guess, the digital space, building
Yeah,
apps or something. Yeah.
it's a good
But
it's a good
yeah.
story. So when did you make the leap and quit your job and move across?
So that was I left in July 2019. So in June of 2019, I handed in my notice in Accenture. I bought flights and I got a working holiday visa. Thankfully, my boyfriend at the time still wanted to go as well, so he joined. And
Yeah,
we got on a plane and we moved to Sydney in July in the depths of
yeah,
winter over here, which is actually kind of chilly.
yeah. I do actually do remember me floating a question to you saying, "Do you like Australia?" And you were like,
Mm.
"Oh, I've always wanted to go to Australia." So the kind of little nudge, wasn't much of a nudge. It was more like, all I had to do was just tap you on the shoulder and you fell over towards Sydney.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Fell
an
onto a
easy
plane.
sell.
Yeah.
So walk me through. You got off the plane, you got a place to live, and all, and you went through the doors of General Assembly. Walk me through what that looked like. Your first kind of days of trying to change into this or learn new things and become a UX designer. What do they do?
Yeah, so it was quite interesting because I guess for General Assembly, you've spoken about it before. There's the pros and the cons. Like the pros are,
Hmm.
you get a bit of you learn the lingo of a designer, so you kind of understand how to speak in an interview or talk to people about design, and you also get a portfolio, which was a big thing for me because I just didn't really understand that. I didn't know what you needed to have as a designer, like in your toolkit for an interview.
Hmm.
So that was obviously really good. But for me, I kind of was like, when I was initially doing the GA course, I kind of was like, oh, I kind of know all this. Obviously like week
Hmm.
one, week two. But as you get into it, you realize that like your consultant mind, or the way that you would naturally approach a project or a problem as a consultant is so different to the way that you would do it as a designer. So I feel like I did do that like mental shift in GA, which definitely
Hmm.
helped. Um, but for me, I guess the main thing that I needed to learn is how do I leverage like my past experiences into, you know, as a designer now.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big thing because okay, you get like out of GA, you get your portfolio with a couple, a client project and just a made up project or whatever.
Hmm.
And you get a good you get your CV done up and you kind of know all the words. But then it's like, okay, so how do I then say my past experience builds on to me as a designer, which I think is really important for junior designers coming into the industry, especially if they've kind of pivoted from past experience, past jobs or industries.
Yeah. Their story.
Yeah,
Make
what
sure
is your
there's
story?
like why, and you just didn't end up here by accident and stuff. Just going back a little
Exactly.
bit more to the General Assembly piece. When you were in Dublin and we had this conversation and you Googled General Assembly, like what are the things that you were looking for at that stage to determine if this was viable?
So for me, the big things I wanted practical experience. So, I feel like you can learn the material, but actually implementing it was a big thing for me. I wanted to be able to work on a project with a client and have actual outcomes out of it. So that was
Hmm.
one thing. The second thing was at the end of it, they do kind of a demo day or a presentation day. And this is literally where they get um, companies to come in and you present your portfolio, you present yourself, and it's an opportunity to get a job out of it. And I actually thankfully did get a job out of it. But that was
Hmm.
kind of another one of the big things that I needed
Yeah.
was I wanted that connection into the Sydney workforce.
So you weren't just looking at one block ahead, you were looking at blocks 1, 2, and 3 ahead of the sequence of the change. So you weren't just looking at the training, you were looking at what comes after that. You're being
Oh,
quite strategic.
completely. Yeah. Because I think, that's what you want. If you want to be a UX designer, you don't want to just do a UX design course. You actually want to get a job. So that's the main, I don't know. I feel like that was the biggest goal for me anyway, does GA help me get a job?
Does it, your outcome, you're looking for the outcome.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was your success, was a job in it, not the knowledge being applied, which is interesting, because in the university roles out there at the moment, you go through university and you're given the knowledge. That's their goal and that's your goal. But in GA's model for you, it was, I want to get a job. Like, I need that hookup almost.
Exactly. Yeah, because I think I learned a good bit through I did a bit of a mentorship with Fjord back in Dublin, and that was really, really helpful. So I did understand the process, but I guess I just needed a job.
Yeah. So what were the bits, I guess, that you would do differently, over the last year, 2 years? Like, well, what have you learned, and what have you like, oh, if only I did that, it might have been a little bit better?
I guess for me, it's just like starting earlier. Honestly, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about moving into UX design for so long, for I guess a year before I even spoke to you. And the reason I didn't do anything about it was, I think I was just scared, or I didn't know. I had no idea what to do. Because
what were you
I
scared
didn't know.
of? Just an interest. What you said you were scared. Scared of what?
I guess I was in a good company. I was in a good role, and I really I liked my team and everything like that. So I was just nervous that, what if I'm just, I didn't really know, like, because I didn't know what UX design was or where it would go. I was like, look, I'm comfortable here. I know what this is. I don't know what UX design will bring. So I was just not comfortable making that shift.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So after you went through the course, was it a 3-month course? I think it was.
Yeah, 3 months.
And what were you looking for whenever the General Assembly course was presented to you? What was important to you in making that selection? Because there's a few other people in the local market that do something similar. So, what made you choose General Assembly over, say, Academy XI?
I actually asked, you had put me in contact with a couple of UX, senior designers in the Sydney, in Sydney, and I actually asked them. I was like, which one would you rate higher if you saw it on a CV? And they just said that they are, a lot of the schools that are out there are quite similar. I guess the reason that General Assembly might have a better brand is just because it's a bit more internationally recognized, would be the first thing. And secondly, because it's a little bit older, people do know what it is. So that was actually the reason that I decided to go with it.
Yeah. So your trainer in General Assembly, walk me through who trained and what they were like, because I think I know the answer to this, but I want to give you a shout out to them.
Yeah, Susan Wolf. She's unbelievable. Like, I just thought she was an incredible teacher. Shout out to Susan Wolf. She's great. Highly recommend her. So I guess the reason I really liked her was because she had that industry knowledge as well. So it wasn't just looking at it from an educational standpoint. She tied everything back to case studies, or she tied everything back to, previous work that she had done. And I guess that just made it so much more relevant, because you understood, okay, here's what happens, here's how it, can get completely messed up, and here's what it's like in real world. And you're like, okay, so because you got a little bit of a taste of it, you're like, okay, that's really interesting.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about where you're at now and what you're doing.
Yeah, so now I'm working as a UX designer in Blue Egg. So it's a design agency based here in Sydney, and I've been working here now for about six months or so now. So I've actually got a chance to work on an end-to-end product design project, which was actually really, really interesting. Got to kind of do the full double diamond, as they say. So it was great.
I'll bleep that bit out.
Bleep that bit out, please. It'll show how young I am and my whole my experience. But no, it's been really interesting because I've got to see the full spectrum of the design process, which has been nice. I've seen, the user interviews, the deep user research, but I've also then got the experience of doing the high fidelity prototyping as well, which has been really, really nice. And that's kind of what I'm doing there. I'm also, of course, helping you out in This Is HCD, which has been amazing as well. So I've gone.
Thanks for that. You're not helping me. You're helping the listeners in Sydney. You're doing a wonderful job. You've started doing online meetups in light of the pandemic, and they're going wonderfully well. That's the feedback that everyone is giving us anyway. So tell us what you're doing with This Is HCD.
Yeah, it's actually it's amazing, and I guess as well, thank you again for the opportunity of doing it. It was interesting when I first joined because seeing as I'd only been in Sydney about 8 months I don't even know. Yeah, 8 months at the time. My network wasn't exactly overflowing with people, so it was a great way of kind of meeting new designers, talking to new designers, and just, I guess, creating a space where people could talk. And I think it's just so important at the moment, especially now. People are just, isolating, or during this quarantine time. It's so nice to be able to have a space where people can just jump on their laptops and join a call. And we had our first design meetup online. Was it? Yeah, it was last week. Yeah, last week. With Josie Bim from Cochlear. So that was really, really interesting. Yeah.
So if people want to reach out to Rebekah Murphy and learn more, you're obviously on the Slack channel for This Is HCD. But tell us a little bit how they might find you online.
Yeah, so LinkedIn, obviously, Rebekah Murphy. I'm also on Twitter now as well, Rebekah M. Murphy, which is a bit of a mouthful.
With a K as well.
With a K, so yeah, or EBEKAH. Nice and easy to remember. But yeah, that's basically how you can reach out to me.
Great. Rebekah, I'll throw a link to those in the show notes if people want to connect you and ask any questions, because I know there's definitely lots and lots of people out there who are considering design as a career. And, obviously, with This Is Doing as well, which has just launched recently, our online training platform, which is coming up, we're going to be helping and working in this space as well. So definitely reach out to Rebekah. It's a great opportunity. It's a great industry, and, be brave, I guess, is the thing that I always say to people, making that leap into design, because it's a wonderful world. Rebekah, thank you so much for your time today. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, anyone, please reach out. As I've said, I've had a lot of helping hands moving into this space, so I'm always happy to help others as well. So thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you'd like to be part of the conversation or community, hop on over to thisishcd.com, where you can join the Slack community and help shape future episodes and connect with other designers around the world, or join the HCD newsletter where you can win books and get updates. Subscribe to our content on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and listen to any of our other podcasts, such as Getting Started in Design, Bringing Design Closer with myself, Gerry Scullion, or Power of 10 with Andy Pillane, or Decoding Culture with Dr. John Curran, Prod Pod with Adrian Tan, and Ethnopod with Jay Hasbrook. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.